Hi, welcome back. So we looked at data types, the types that are supported by Python. In this video, we're going to look at type conversions. What that means is Python lets you convert a value of one type to another, and we're going to see some examples of that. We're going to go back to terminal, and as you know, we can type in any number and Python will just display it in this shell. So here we're going to try some type conversions. So what if we wanted to convert this floating point 98.4 to an integer? You would just do int open parenthesis 98.4 close parenthesis and hit enter. You get 98. So let's see what's going on here. We are calling int function. So a function is nothing but something that takes in some values. Sometimes it may not, but then does whatever is coded inside the function. So int is a function coded to perform a conversion of what's passed in into an integer. So it's a function that's available as part of Python, so nobody has to write it. It's already available, and its sole job is to take in whatever input we give, convert that to an integer, and give the output back. And the function is always something like this. You call a name, and then you open parentheses to pass in inputs, and then close the parentheses to say the inputs are done. Int takes only one input, which is something that's not an integer. You could pass in an integer too, but it wouldn't matter because it'll just display that. But it's used to convert another type to integer. Now, similarly, you can pass in a string of 23. So here we are passing in within quotes, which means it's a string, and it will convert that to an integer. Now, if you pass in something that's not a number, so let's say you pass in ABC and hit enter, you're obviously going to get an error because the int function cannot convert a string ABC into an integer, so you get an error back. And the same thing would happen if you pass in, let's say, int within quotes 98.4. So this is slightly different than what we have here, where we are passing an actual floating point. But here we are passing in a string that contains a floating point number. You would get the same thing because Python function int cannot identify that, okay, you're passing a floating point inside a string, so it will first have to convert that to a floating point, then to an integer. It's not as sophisticated as that, right? So you pass in a simple type, and then you ask it to convert to an integer, and the int function will automatically do it. Now there is another function float, which, as you might guess, converts anything that you pass, or any integer that you pass, or a string that you pass into a floating point. So you could do something like this: float of the same thing, 98.4, and press enter. So no error this time because the string 98.4 is a valid floating point. So it just had to convert that string to a floating point and give you the output. And same thing with an integer. You can pass in 35 and it'll just give you 35.0 with the decimal point. And then there's another function, str. Again, you might guess that whatever you pass in will be converted to a string. So you can do str within quotes 78.23 close. Actually, you don't need the quotes there. Sorry about that. So you can do str 78.23. So now you're passing in a floating point to the str function, and it gives you that output. So here I made a mistake because I passed actually a string, which actually didn't matter. It just identified that it's already a string and then gave it out, right? But here we are passing in a floating point, and we're asking Python to convert that to a string, and it did just that because now we have the quotes. And again, you can pass in an integer too, and it'll do the same thing, convert that to a string. So these are kind of like the commonly used functions. There are quite a few functions available in Python that can be used. In the next video, I'm actually going to show where you can find the list of all these possible options in Python and play with. But in this video, we covered type conversions and the most commonly used type conversions. Again, as I always do, I encourage you to play with these functions, see what output you get, because that's the only way to grasp these concepts and understand them correctly. Thank you. See you in the next video.